Okay, if I could ask everyone to take their seats, please. Okay, is everybody's technology working? Mr. Clerk, it is, I don't see, almost 7 o'clock. Can't see. We are in council chambers, Tuesday, May the 9th, 2017, for our regular council meeting. Councillors, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as has been amended? Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Humphreys, comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, please. Seeing none, we have no presentations, so we'll move to delegations, please. And that's in the addendum. First up is Troy Houry. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, sir. Close. Houry, thank you. I'll remind you, sir, if you could give us your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name's Troy Houry. I'm resident of 34 Tyler Street, and I'm just joining. I'm just coming up today to speak with you about some of the things we went over last week in the committee, the General Committee. So the first thing that we wanted to do is I'm representing the ratepayers group for Aurora Village, and the first thing that we wanted to go over was the urban design peer review that has been requested by council. The Aurora Village ratepayers had requested a peer review of the heritage report, but instead would like to request council's peer review of the urban design and architectural assessment to be extended to include the option of retaining in full or part of the 4 existing houses, an assessment of the heritage impact of the proposed design on the streetscapes of Tyler and Temperance Street, and research into possible funding partnerships that would improve the situation. Secondly, we would like to forward an amendment to the Heritage Committee's recommendations that were brought as part of the adjudication of the destruction of these homes. We request a motion be brought forward by council to revise the recommendation of item C by the Heritage Committee report number HAC 17-009 to read that all residential style architecture be incorporated in the facade and streetscape, inclusive and respectful to heights and massing on Temperance and Tyler Streets. It's just adding some clarification to some of that. Thirdly, what we would like to do is to request a community cultural precinct plan be developed during this process as part of the application process for the ZBA and the OPA for the Amica and Aurora United Church development. The ratepayers request the inclusion of a final community cultural precinct plan for the development of the entire blocks bounded by Yonge, Temperance, Tyler, and Wellington. This block plan request is described in the Neighborhood Old Town Urban Design Strategy and is already a requirement of the Aurora Promenade. I will show you within that documentation, there are two pages of and I'll read, while they're setting that up, I'll read so that I don't waste time. From that Urban Design Strategy document on page 76, special area plans, and this is within the new Promenade Plan. No development application should proceed in these special design areas without a comprehensive plan undertaken to coordinate the street and block patterns, open spaces, land uses, built form, and other supporting studies that may be deemed necessary, such as traffic and heritage impacts. So that's on page 19, which is the one on the left at the bottom. Then the next one is this one at the top of this page. Page number 19, the objectives of this plan. New buildings and development in the focus areas should occur based on a comprehensive area plan to ensure compatible development. In the case, it goes on about the GO station, but more importantly, a well-planned street and block pattern built form framework and public realm plans. I'm sorry, I read that a little bit poorly. So within that, what I've just done quickly to show, oh boy, okay. Yeah, so I did a quick block plan to show that actually within the design that's already been presented, I suggest that we take the opportunity to take the driveway that's been designed halfway through the plan and use that to connect it to public parking to the rest of the block, and that the pink area that's on this actually represents the transition of lower buildings. It brings us back down to Temperance. The final request that I have is to make a motion to defer. Because of this, we request that a member of council present a motion to defer the HC recommendations to allow the delistings of the 4 homes to be revisited during a review of the final OPA. However, if council approves this delisting, we request that any decision to demolish the 5 subject homes be deferred until the OPA and the ZPA have been approved. And may I finish the 2 sentences I have left?
Quickly, sir.
Thanks. To be approved, and it would be a shame to take these homes down if the development approval was held up, if there are any referrals to the OMB, and similarly if it may also impact on any hearings if the homes are demolished at the OMB determination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to receive and refer to item R6? Councillor Peary, Councillor Humphreys, any comments? Don't go away, there might be some comments. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you.
Mr. Howery.
Hi, thank you. With respect to the heritage minutes that are from GC and are on council again this evening, I didn't catch what you were saying about Part C.
Okay, just re-say that again. The Part C actually read without, maybe I can show on this, there was some red lines. It's going to take a second. The alteration has been changed in red on this document. You'll see this in a second. It's halfway down the page right here. So in the red is the stuff that's been highlighted, so that the residential style of architecture be incorporated in the design of facade and streetscape, inclusive of respect to heights and massing on Temperance and Tyler Street. So what we've added in this is a request that there be Tyler Street added to their recommendation, but also a respect to the height and massing that is already existing in the neighborhood. Basically, again, reminding everyone that we have to work with a transition between function and purpose and use between Yonge and the neighboring low-lying neighborhoods, which is in our zoning plan.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for coming forward, Mr. Hui. You showed 2 things from the cultural promenade. Can you just put those back up on the...
They're so small, I should have made them larger, but it's full page. So 2 things. Yes.
So, and I highlighted the page, obviously. And can we see the second one is just creeping up there?
The first one is more clear about things. It's basically asking for the entire block to be designed and considered before a major development goes in, so that the entire block, I mean, there was talk in the Heritage Committee yesterday of also beginning to get heritage status for the buildings on Yonge. So I think that there would be an interest by the community, and it would be smart for the town to actually consider that whole block area and how parking will work and how that driveway can become a major, there's many entrances into that parking lot already, but maybe there's a way that can all be connected and make this a more integrated plan, rather than having 6 different people who will develop along Young on that block area have different things and then it'll be a big hobble bobble rather than a thought out process. So.
The reference to the Promenade study is very important, and the focus areas are obviously a key element of that plan. So thanks very much. I just wanted to see those again.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for coming this evening. And don't apologize; you're doing a great job. It's not easy to get up there and speak. It's different. But thank you so much for coming. It's important that you come here and express concerns and wishes for sure, and I appreciate that. Just to go back to where you outlined the pink outline of the landscape there. So basically, you're requesting that. Just your idea is that it's a buffer from Temperance.
There's currently a driveway that comes off Temperance. It's right beside the little park that goes into the master.
Right. Oh, the microphone, sorry. These microphones.
So, yeah, you see I put the word driveway there. So there's the park, there's the driveway off Temperance. If there's this new driveway that's coming off Tyler, these 2 things could be connected so that this whole block actually works in a constructive way. If we don't do this, whoever ends up buying the burger place will then do another thing that won't be connected, and it'll become we'll have a whole bunch of driveways going into one area. And part of the Promenade plan is to save this historic area and to make it work and function better for the people of the town. And I think that this is the opportunity, now that we are dealing with the first major development on the Promenade, that we have to start being active with this. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very good for our consideration and staff development to keep this in mind, because it will, I agree with you, it's very cohesive and a nice sort of a presentation for sure. I think that's all I had. I think my other question was answered. Yes, that's all for now. Thank you.
Councillor Marcus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Thanks for coming, Troy. I'm just wondering, are you aware that under the Act that if an applicant puts forward a demo permit, that this council has to decide within 60 days whether the buildings would be designated or whether they would be delisted?
Already passed the 60 days. It was submitted is it not past the 60 days?
No, they haven't. No one's applied for a demo permit. But I just want to know if you're aware that if someone does put a demo permit, that we have 60 days. We can't defer that decision. And I know that it hasn't happened yet, but I mean, any applicant has the right to put forward that demo permit, and we have to make that decision. And I just wanted to know if you were aware of that or not.
By deferring this decision until this process has been taken care of, that this is proactively saying that the town is protecting that area in case something comes up in the future. I mean, this has been fast-tracked. In a normal process, we'd have more time to sort of go through this development process, but I think that because of how immediate it is, we need to be more proactive about protecting those homes until we know that this will actually happen.
Councillor?
That's it.
Any other speakers? All in favor of receipt and refer, please. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Howery. Next up, we have Hans Hoyer on the same issue. Mr. Hoyer, if you could give us your name and address, please, sir. And you have 5 minutes, and there's a chime when there's 1 minute left.
Best.
Thank you.
My name is Hans Hoyer. I live on 28 Tyler Street. It's been an interesting month and a half since the March meeting in which the United Church development has been presented to the public. And what a shock it is, not only to our neighborhood, but also to the town of Aurora at large. Everyone in town was saddened by the tragic events of April 11, when the fire, that was 2014, when the fire caused by careless and underinsured roofers destroyed the once proud and majestic church that had stood on the site since 1878. So naturally, everyone rooted for the church congregation to get their church rebuilt and perhaps add a housing component, perhaps affordable seniors' residences. After almost 3 years of planning, collecting the input from learned, mostly out-of-town consultants with no stake in the community, the plan presented calls for a smaller church than the previous one and a 9-story building for high-end seniors housing. Such a use and height would be permitted under the zoning. The zoning issue, in my opinion, is a fudge of gigantic proportions. Firstly, the church existed when the zoning was introduced in the 1950s or 1960s and was assigned institutional zoning. The height of 28 meters must have had to do with church steeples and spires that had to be accommodated. The zoning, therefore, reflected an existing use. Secondly, the height of 28 meters is subject to other stipulations, all minimums. A front yard of 10 meters on Yonge Street, a rear yard of 15 meters, that would be from the residential lot line that fronts Tyler and Temperance, an exterior side yard of 10 meters, that would be on Tyler Street, a side yard of half the height of the building, in no case less than 4.5 meters, and that would be measured from the C2 zone parking lot. And fifth, a lot coverage maximum of 35%. Out of the 4,600 square meters, only about 2,100 meters have the present institutional zoning. That represents about 46%. The other 54% of the land has the zoning designation C2. So the fudge lies in transferring the 28-meter height from present institutional zoning to the entire site and using all the favorable zoning aspects of C2 and the new comprehensive zoning bylaw, and then requiring more variances to make the project so-called financially viable. Would it not be more reasonable to use an approach whereby one blends the two bylaws? Would it be feasible to maintain the streetscape on Tyler and Temperance? Would it not be possible to have setbacks so that better buffering can be achieved on both streets? In the context of what was on the site, what is in the surrounding area at present, and the new zoning bylaw, the proposal is not right. It's too high and too massive. And I hope this is not a done deal, because I've heard that shovels are meant to go into the ground soon. There seems to be a rush to get things done. The delisting of the old housing, the demolition permit, and enshrining the 28-meter height into an institutional exception zone in the new bylaw before it's even passed. I wonder where the church congregation stands on all this. Where are the voices of reason? Where are the heritage-minded people of the Historical Society? Some of its members are also part of the church congregation. Does it not bother their conscience? Does it not bother them that a high-end seniors residence is the tallest and most dense in town? For all the reasons stated here and have been expressed by others, I respectfully ask the members of council to not approve this project. I respectfully ask that the decision to delist the residential properties be deferred until all the approvals for the projects have been given.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We have a motion to receive and defer. Councilors Tom and Humphreys, any comments or questions for the delegate, please? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All in favor of receiving? Opposed? That's carried. We will move to the items. council, there's everything, there was no new items added this week, so everything is on, moving forward from GC on consent. Are there any items, first of all, that anybody would like to move to the regular agenda for full discussion? We'll deal with that first. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not sure about this, if I'm doing this right, so I'll give it a try. I did have some questions to ask. I have a comment about C1, so I don't have to move that to the regular agenda. C3, I have some questions.
Okay, we'll move that to the regular agenda.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to move the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes to the,
That's R6.
thank you.
We'll move that to the regular agenda. Anything else?
Just 1 second, please. And I'd like to make a comment on R3.
Okay.
This is the summary.
Anyone else?
But they were so.
So, Councillor Gartner, I'm going to go to you for, you had something on C1, the drinking water?
I'd like to thank staff for putting the drinking water quality management standard review on our GC agenda. I wasn't here last week to speak to it. Drinking water quality is very, very important to our community. And as part of the Safe Drinking Water Act, municipalities need to have operational plans to demonstrate commitment to drinking water quality. And these plans need to be endorsed not only by senior staff, but they also need to be endorsed by council, because we have responsibility here. So I think it's important to put these things on a public agenda so the public and council can easily see what measures we're taking to make sure our water is clean and safe.
Thank you. Are there any other, Councillor Humphreys, on the clean water? Yes. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too, as Councillor Gartner, appreciate this being on the agenda for public record. We are personally accountable to the clean water, drinking water in our town as councillors, and it's something that we all take very seriously. I take very seriously. I've read the report. I know there was some training available or some sort of work sessions that we could have attended years ago. I'm not sure if there's anything like that we need to do again or any reminders, but I do appreciate the work done here. We're doing our due diligence to make sure that our town is safe. We have safe water, and again, it's extremely important. So thank you to staff.
Okay, seeing no other questions on that item, I will go to R3. Councillor Gartner, you had a question on that, the proposed taxi licensing bylaw amendments.
I just had a comment, and I want to thank Ms. Van Leeuwen. I know she was lobbied a lot by the taxi industry, and it's our job to make sure that our residents are safe, and that we also try and help our local businesses. So I think the amendments to the bylaw accomplish both of those, and I thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to item C4, I just want to state briefly that, we always turn to our advisory committees for advice from the public, and it's always important that we receive advice from the public. And I just wanted to be on the record stating my disappointment that we could hold a meeting where 1 out of 4 members of the committee are able to attend the meeting, and quorum was made up of myself, Councillor Abel, a representative from a community organization, but I feel like we really missed out on an opportunity here from the residents, committee members. With that said, I don't disagree with the motion that came out of that, but I did want to state my disappointment that we got to that point, in that manner. So that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any other comments on any other consent items? May I have a motion then to accept C1 with all the sub-items with the exception of C3 and R6, and then C2, 3, and 4, which are all the consent items. Councillor Tom and Councillor Kim, we'll go to the voting, please. Linda? And if you could vote. Everybody hit their buttons, please.
Hang on.
Okay.
I forgot to log in.
Linda, do you still want us to raise our hands as well? Mr. Clerk, do you still want us to raise our hands?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Just a few people logging in.
Okay, we have some people who are having trouble logging in.
My fault. Sorry. Can someone help me log in?
Mr. Jeffrey?
Well, Kim.
So much for the theory that technology speeds things up.
It's user problems, not technology.
Don't need to. Have we got everybody? Linda? You got a thumbs up there for us? Councillor Tom? Councillor Kim? Councillor Kim's is a thumbs down.
I need your help me. It's not popping up, the vote thing.
Okay, Linda, Councillor Kim, Linda can put in your vote, so if everybody's in favor of the motion, just put your hand high so she can see where we're going. Councillor Kim? Opposed? I believe that's carried. Linda, can you do that for us, please? Thank you.
There we go. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, my fault. User error and user.
Okay, Council, we have 2 items then on the regular agenda. We'll start with C3.
Mayor Dodd, just through you to the clerk, can we just confirm then that with regards to the Emerald Ash Borer, we adopted the GC recommendation, which was to go with triazine going forward?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Dodd, yes, that's correct.
Alrighty. Councillor Gartner, you pulled C3. Motion, please.
Move the motion as is.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Humphreys, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did watch the meeting last week, and I did hear the discussion. A little shocking that we have potentially only 2 years servicing capacity. So I'm not sure, through you to, I have a couple of questions, maybe Mr. Amuno. Does that 2 years servicing capacity take us to build out of the 2C lands?
Mr. Amuno, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the 2C lands are essentially built out, and they have, any development within 2C already have servicing allocation at the time of the subdivision approval by council back in 2013. So they're accounted for.
Councillor Gartner.
So this is for only new builds?
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. I mean, the equivalent of approximately 2 years is the equivalent of about 3,700 persons equivalent worth. So that's the amount of capacity that we have, that council has to allocate out to any new developments, residential developments as they come forward.
Councillor?
Population figure does that take us to?
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently we're at, our existing population is just over 60,000. That additional 3,700 persons would be added to that, but there are a number of developments out there, such as the completion of 2C and some other developments that council has approved that have allocation. I haven't done that math, but that would likely take us to, closer to high 60s, close to 70,000.
Councillor.
Based on the approval.
Thank you. And with respect to the infill developments, we set aside a certain number of servicing capacity units. So where are we at with that, please?
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, good question. Within that 3,700 persons, a number of years ago, council reserved 1,000 persons equivalent for our downtown intensification, and quite frankly, we haven't really used much of that. The only one we allocated within the downtown intensification would have been the Treasure Hill development on the northwest corner of Yonge and Wellington. So we still have a good chunk of that left. We probably have, well over 800 persons about 800 persons equivalent left within that intensification reserve.
Councillor?
That would have included Centro as well.
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, Centro was approved and allocated a number of years before, so that wouldn't have been factored in.
Councillor?
Last question. Do we approve developments if we don't have the servicing capacity, or is it a conditional approval?
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we typically in my reports, when I recommend to council approval of a development application, we assign by way of a resolution for the council assign servicing allocation to that development. The other option, and we've done this in the past, is we could approve, council could approve a residential development application subject to a holding provision, which is really the condition that servicing may not be in place just yet.
Councillor Gardner, okay, thank you. Councillor Abel, then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mayor Daw. I want to thank Councillor Tom, who is the chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee, for giving me some time to get some clarification. I found this quite complex, what was going on. So really, we have a very large heritage impact statement.
Councillor, we're on the allocation and servicing. Are you?
I am on the wrong one.
Okay.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'll go to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Dodd. Just briefly, we had a fairly long discussion with regards to the servicing last week, and Mr. Ramuna had indicated that he will be coming back with a report to discuss strategies and tactics to address that need, and also indicated that Aurora is not alone. Other municipalities were in York Region, but I'm not sure if Mr. Ramuna answered when that report would be forthcoming. So through you to Mr. Ramuna. Mr. Ramuna, do you have any idea when you'll be able to address the concerns of council and give us an idea of how we're going to tackle this issue?
Mr. Ramuna?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. I should have a report for council within the June cycle. I have a meeting with the region scheduled next week, I believe, and I will report to council on those discussions. And there are a couple options to deal with the short-term issues over servicing allocation.
Councillor? If there's no other comments or questions on this item, all in favor? Opposed? Oh, right, yeah. Linda, open the vote. I was giving up on my comrades here too easily. If we would vote on screen, please, and then I'll just ask people to raise their hand if they're in favor of the report. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Linda? Okay, Linda, did you get all that? Everybody, we voted in favor, so we're all good? You can just put them in manually, okay? The motion's carried. Move on to item R6, please. Councillor Gardner, I believe you pulled that.
I did, Mr. Mayor.
Motion, please.
I can't move the motion as is. I want to make an amendment.
So move the motion from GC. Councillor Perry. No, I was asking you actually if you'd take your seat.
Oh, yeah,
Councillor Perry, are you going to move the motion? Sure. Is there a second? Thank you very much. Councillor Humphries, thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just further to the delegates' comments, I think from the discussion that went on at the Heritage Advisory Committee, I think it would be fine to add the wording that he suggested, which was that residential style architecture be incorporated in the design of the facade and streetscape, inclusive of the respect to design and massing on Temperance and Tyler. I think that wouldn't change the intent of what the committee was trying to say. So I would like to make that amendment.
I would suggest that's a contrary motion because we're not talking about that. Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Dodd, I would agree that that it's.
We're talking about the Heritage, the recommendation from Heritage, which is to permit the removal of those buildings. permit the delisting of the building. I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Gartner, back to you.
Except that there's 5 parts of that, and A and B is talking about the delisting. So there were 5 recommendations.
Can I go to the chair? Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking to the chair. But you weren't at that meeting. Were you at that meeting? Okay, my apologies. Can you give us a page reference, Councillor? So we can all flip to it?
I'm working on C5, so I can't give you the R6 page.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So that was item 3, right? A, B.
Yes, it was item 3.
Okay, I'm sorry. Councillor Gartner, let me come back to you then, and if you could restate that for me.
Thank you. So the committee put forward A, B, C, D, and E.
Mm-hmm.
The delegate was, one of the points he was speaking to was C. And the first thing is that they wanted Tyler included as well as Temperance, and I think that's a fair ask. And the second one, there were discussions at the committee about, again, design and massing. So I don't think it would be contrary to this to put in inclusive of respect to the design and massing.
I certainly have no problems with the first one. I'm not sure about this. We're not really talking about the design of the building, although I appreciate that would be more appropriate, I think, perhaps at the site plan design, at the site plan stage.
Well, but the committee is talking about it, so.
Well, certainly adding Tyler Street I think, would be in keeping with item C. I agree with you there.
Okay.
So let's do the 2 separately, if we may.
Okay. And the other one is, and it's a question I'm not sure to who, but I mean, this is going to be going through a process where we are doing an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. So this report is talking about delisting 5 homes. We've put it in 2 sections, A and B, but 5 homes. And so what would happen if a demolition permit comes in before we approve the application, and a demolition permit comes in and the 5 homes come down? I mean, I don't want to see that as a member of council. I'd like this. I think the suggestion to defer this, or whatever it is possible to do, if the clerk can suggest something. It is part, I listened to the discussion last week, and these homes are part and parcel of the application. So to have them demolished and before we actually approve the application, it just doesn't sit well with me. I don't think it's the right way to go. So I don't know. It is a recommendation from the committee to delist these, but we as a council have the right to do whatever we want with the recommendations. So I would like to keep A and B in abeyance until we actually go through with the process of approving the OPA and the zoning bylaw amendment. I'd like to know what other people on council feel.
Well, you'd have to suggest you make that a motion to defer.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, would that be appropriate? Motion to defer Part A and B of the motion until the application is completed with respect to the OPA and ZB and zoning bylaw amendment? Am I being followed on council?
Yep. I got to go to the clerk because I'm not sure that's valid.
through you, Mayor Dow, I believe we have to defer the whole item. And you'd certainly be within your rights to make a motion to defer, but then the rules in terms of speaking and speaking limits and what the council's allowed to speak to would change.
My rights to defer the whole motion, and then I missed the second part?
Mr. Clerk?
Pardon me. It's just the speaking towards the motion. We wouldn't be able to speak towards the actual motion itself, but or towards the deferral and the merits of deferring.
Deferring?
You're on. Now you're on.
Okay, then I make a motion to defer this. I don't want to see...
Okay, hold on. Let's get a second, and we'll go back to you. Is there a second on Councillor Gartner's motion to defer? Councillor Abel, thank you. Speaking to the motion to defer.
I just don't want to see 5 properties demolished before we approve this application. I mean, we know the United Church is going to rebuild, and we want it to be wonderful and just get the congregation back in there. And also we want them to be able to be viable financially. That's not a question. But I just don't want to see 5 homes demolished. We actually approve as a council the application.
Thank you. Councillor Perry, on the motion to defer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking to the motion to defer, I'm going to be voting against it because I don't think the premise is sound. The motions we have in front of us are talking about removing homes from a listing. I don't think that should be the reasoning that we're going to be deferring this. That application to delist these homes has to be taken separately from a potential application to demolish these homes. And further, I think that I trust the committee's recommendation that delisting these homes is happening because they don't hold a significant cultural significance to the municipality. So it's my view that if we're going to be deferring this, it should be because we might be making an error in removing the listing, but Councillor Gartner's rationale is because she doesn't want to see these homes delisted. Demolished. And again, see, it's happening to me. I'm getting confused talking about it now. But there's a difference between delisting and demolishing. And these motion that we have in front of us doesn't talk about demolishing. They just talk about delisting these properties. So we have to take that at face value. And so I'm against deferral.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. So as soon as we delist these, we can say the earliest that they can be demolished is within 60 days. Because an application could go in the next day, and then 60 days go by, and then they're demolished. And we know that in the grand plan of things, that's exactly what's going to happen to these homes. They're going to be delisted. My concern is what's going in its place. And I wanted to see comments from the Heritage Advisory Committee on those comments, because they often comment on what's going in the place of a delisted or demolished property that has been listed. And comments, just like you see here in item 2, the future building elevations are subject to approval and will maintain the heritage character of the area. So in these minutes that we have, we don't have those comments in here.
Okay, back to the deferral. I appreciate your point, but...
Well, my concern is that if we delist it without any comment, the message we're sort of sending is that we're moving ahead with this project. And we have to hear from our residents and comments from council. I don't want to be handcuffed, so I want to slow it down until that's addressed. I would like I mean, if it's a deferral, I'll vote in favor if we can get that done. But my end result would be to refer it back to Heritage Advisory Committee for the comments. So those are my comments on the deferral. I was hoping the word refer was going to come back, Councillor Gardner, so I'm going to wait for the other comments. So if it does get defeated, I'm going to try and get those comments that I'm looking for the public and for everyone else from the Heritage Advisory Committee on this application.
Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think everyone knows how I feel when we get these. I mentioned it last week, when we get these applications to delist. I think it's our duty as a council, once they come in, is to decide whether the application, or whether the home or the property should be designated or it should be delisted. To defer it, we're just wasting time, I think, at the end of the day. And I don't think that moving ahead with this means that we're moving ahead with the project. And that's why I said last week, it's a separate issue. What's in front of us, what the Heritage Committee looked at, was the delisting of these properties. They weren't looking at the application of the United Church and what they're looking to build in its place. And that's not what we're looking at tonight. We'll be looking at that at public planning. I don't know how anyone could come up with the decision that I've decided that I'm going to move forward with the application to build the United Church just because I want to delist these properties. I'm delisting these properties, going ahead with the recommendation, because they don't meet to be designated. And under the Act, that means that we should delist them. We shouldn't hold an applicant hostage because we don't like an application right now of what they're looking to do. We'll deal with that when it comes to public planning. So I'm not in favor of deferring this. If someone wanted to look at designating it, I'd say that's a different story. But to defer it, no.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, a couple of things. 100% with what Councillor Marcus is saying, that, these homes were reviewed and they were decided to be they were not decided to be heritage listed. Heritage listed, or, you have to make the decision. As a town, we have some work to do. We made a decision, I don't know how many years ago, to any houses that were a certain year, we put them on the list, and then we come up with this situation. Really what I'd like to see, and that's something probably clean up later, is that go back to that list and delist those houses so that it's clear when it comes to this table that we're not dealing with heritage properties, because they're delisted. They're not of heritage significance. I understand, though, we want to keep the look, the feel of our heritage downtown. Absolutely. I think we've all heard that. The developers have heard that. We know that when, as Councillor Marcus stated, when we come back to the planning piece, that we're going to be looking very diligently to see how we can make this development beautiful, and that you, as residents closest to there, can love the new development, and it'll be beautiful. I know it will be. I know that the developers want that to be the gem of our community, and I think we're afraid, and that's fair, that if we make a decision to delist these properties, what's going to happen? As an owner, and I gotta be straightforward here, they have the right to come and say delist, and they did, and the decision was made. Even if it was heritage of significance, they also, and this really hurts for me about to say this, but they have a right to demolish. They can put in the application now. We can defer this as a council. They have all the right to put in a demolition permit right now, and we have 30 days to make a decision. So what I see is happening here is that the developer is trying to work with us to delist, and then start to see what flexibility they have in order to build a development that they can be well for what they need it for, and also for the community. We were I find it interesting that we're trying to defer the delisting when I'm sure about a month or two we had Heritage come here. Same thing. They had some properties that were not heritage significant. They didn't want to delist it, but they didn't want to list it. So they said, just leave it. And we said, forget it. If it's not heritage of value, we said delist. And we forced that 2 months in a row, I believe. And again, I think what we're trying to do is we all want to keep Aurora, our downtown core, is beautiful and is as original as possible. I believe when we come down to the planning process that we'll be working with the residents and the developer to make sure that that happens. There's some great ideas today. I know that they're listening. I know they're listening, and I know we're listening, and we're going to make this something we can be really proud of. So for me to delay, and I understand the hesitation. Part of me is like, yeah, let's wait a little bit. Let's get all the... But if you're looking at this particular motion, it's these homes, and are they of heritage significance? And we've also had heritage homes demolished with a potential plan, but that sometimes doesn't work out either. And I'm not going to highlight those because I'll regret that for the rest of my life, because we were shown beautiful pictures and that's not what happened, and that can happen too. So for me, we need to just continue to work with the process. Let's move forward tonight, and let's go on to the next step, which is, then we'll start looking at if the planning, process, which will work the way it should, come forward with a plan. And we'll see what the architecture is going to be around the building and hopefully comply to what the residents would like and what we would love. So for me tonight, I'm not in favor for the deferral. I'd like to move forward so we can get on with the processes and absolutely speak to the planning process during planning time. There'll be lots of planning meetings, discussion around that, and that's where we really work hard to come back with a really good scenario for all of us. So that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. My understanding is that one of the reasons that the deferral has been put forward is a concern that if it's delisted, that the properties might be demolished within a short period of time. So through you to Mr. Ramuto. Mr. Ramuto, you've obviously worked with the proponents. Has there been any indication by them to you that should these properties be delisted, that they would demolish those properties in the next 30 days or 60 days or prior to the completion of the planning process?
To you, Mr. Mayor. No, as was mentioned, the owners of the United Church have not submitted demolition permits, and I don't think they're going to rush in to submit a demo permit to remove those buildings. The removal would just, they would be removed from the list if council approved this tonight, but that is not their immediate plans, as I understand it. But again, as far as the assessment that was completed, those homes, did not warrant or meet provincial standards for designation, and my understanding is the majority of the homes are vacant at this time.
As a follow-up question, through you to Mr. Ramuto. Mr. Ramuto, is it accurate to say that any property owner can come to and make a request of the town or council to have their property delisted, regardless of what's happening to the property? They can still make that request, and then it would be council's decision whether or not to delist them?
Mr. Ramuto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. Any property owner that has a property on our register of listed properties could come in at any time and make a request to either remove the property from the list or even demolish it by way of a demo permit.
Councilor?
Thank you. And similar to my comments last week, I really do see these as two separate things. The property owner has asked us to delist the property. We're making a decision based on that solely. The site plan, the proposal, that will be dealt with at the end of this month at the public planning, and so I'm not in favor of a deferral. I'll be supporting the committee's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Second time around, we have Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I think clearly the deferral is not what I wanted to see when this item was pulled. So I will vote accordingly and then have an opportunity to bring forward my thoughts and perhaps make a motion at that time. Thank you.
Calling, there's no more speakers on the motion to defer. Calling the vote. Linda.
Are we in there or not?
It's me this time.
Jeff, this is coming up.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote by hand as well. All in favor of the motion to defer? Contrary? Motion to defer is defeated. Mr. Clerk, where were we in the speaking order? I'm sorry, I lost track.
Mr. Mayor, do I still have the floor?
No, you'd use your speaking time on that one. We'll go to the speakers who are up there. Oh, I like that's new part of the system, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
So, Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So the report that we have here, as I was saying, was kind of confusing for me to get a hold of, and I thank Councillor Tom for doing that last week. So the minutes are on page 2, and the report is on, I just had it here, page 4. So it's recommended that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend to Council that the Heritage Advisory Committee provide feedback on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. And as part of that application is something called the Royal United Church Heritage Impact Statement. And of that, that's 86 pages. So I'm looking for some comment from the Heritage Advisory Committee on that application, which includes a lot of, it's an excellent report. Quite frankly, Mr. Bray does a great job. He knows our town very well because this would be his 3rd time that I know of in the last few years he's been involved in this area. This time he's on the other side of Yonge, but he has a clear understanding of our heritage, and of course he's an expert. There's a provincial policy statement, and it says, and it's written through this clearly, that whenever there's a properties adjacent to a cultural heritage resource that needs to be assessed, it is to be ensured that the heritage attributes of the cultural heritage resource be protected through the process of change. That's important to know. That's from the province. Now, we have designated the downtown core as a significant cultural resource. In fact, the word significant means that we really hold this area to be part of our heritage, and it is governed under the provincial policy statement. So I think it's absolutely imperative that this application at this time, even though the separate delisting, and I think we're very clear on that, but here, as this process, our Heritage Advisory Committee is part of their job is to make these comments. And in the report, it doesn't show it in the minutes and the 5 items that we've talked about, but in the report, it asks that the committee provide some feedback, which we haven't got. So what I would like to do at this time is refer this back for that feedback from the Heritage Advisory Committee. And as I had said earlier when I was speaking about it out of turn on another item, we see this all the time from the Heritage Advisory Committee. They see a delisting, and they're always presented with a proposal of what's going to go there, and then they provide their comments. Either it looks very good, please, the elevations, and we see that in the minutes right here with the other properties that are there.
So motion to refer, Councillor?
So I would like to, for just based on that, we can approve what we're doing here, and I don't know exactly how it is. I don't want it to get shot down. I don't want to impede the delisting. I don't want to confuse it. But I would approve this, but I would also refer for those comments as the report asked for at the April 10th meeting that the Heritage Advisory Committee had. And I think that's very important.
That would be more of an amendment, I think, requesting that to come back to council.
Requesting to go back to the Heritage Advisory Committee.
Well, an amendment to request the Heritage Advisory Committee to provide council with those comments.
Thank you very much. Then I'll make that amendment.
Okay, is there a second for that, please? Councillor, I'll ask the clerk to speak to it, please.
Through you, Mayor Daw, I originally was thinking new business myself for something that's not part of the motion, but it's also the councillor's decision on to move an amendment.
So, Councillor Gartner, are you seconding the amendment? The amendment is to request the Heritage Advisory Committee to provide comments back to council with respect, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch everything you had there, Councillor Abel.
Provide feedback on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application and existing heritage buildings. Specifically with the heritage impact statement provided in the report. Comments on that? Oh, Mr. Clerk, I haven't jumbled that up.
Mr. Clerk, have you got that? Okay.
Through you, Mayor Dodd, just to clarify, Councillor Abel, feedback on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment on the heritage. Sorry, what did you refer that to?
The heritage impact statement.
Impact statement.
As provided in the report.
And these are just comments from the committee.
Yes.
Okay.
Council, we understand the amendment? It's to request the Heritage Committee to provide additional comments. So, yes, absolutely. Speakers to the amendment, please.
Hold a second.
Councillor Gartner seconded it.
Okay.
Yeah. Clerk has to get caught up. Okay, so amendment. So Linda, did you get the amendment? So if you could bring that up, please. Speakers to the amendment, please. You have to press your button again, Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I'm not in favor of the amendment because the report that was Councillor Abel was referencing was on the agenda of the committee on April 10th. The committee discussed the report itself is talking about the heritage resources of the houses in question. That was what the first part of what we were tasked to do. So we looked at delisting those homes. The committee did provide some feedback with respect to the residential style architecture incorporated in the design of the facade and streetscape. You know, there was questions in the report and at the committee meeting about whether or not there's potential archaeological findings that might happen. And so we requested that any of that information comes back to us. And also the last recommendation to council was that the site plan application be reviewed by the Heritage Committee at a future meeting so that it can be assessed and comments could be provided on what the site plan would provide or propose, and the Heritage Committee would again provide comments at that time. I mean, Mr. Bray's report and all of this report was on the April 10th committee meeting. It was on our general committee meeting, and now we're voting on it now. And so there's been ample time for comments to be put forward. I don't think the committee, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, when we did discuss this at committee, we were looking at the delisting of the 5 homes and to provide initial comments on the plan as we had seen it. And this was the result of that discussion was the recommendations you see before you. So to me, the Heritage Committee has already commented on this. I mean, they also just recommend to council. Council has the ultimate decision. So again, looking at recommendation E is that the Heritage Committee is asking for the site plan to come back for comment, which is kind of what Councillor Abel's amendment is asking for. Because we already looked at the report, Mr. Bray's report was on our agenda. And so that would mean we're going to look at it again for a second time. I guess I just don't really understand. For me, we've already looked at this report, and we've already made the Heritage Committee as a whole has made the recommendation to see before you. So, if I don't know what to say, if those recommendations don't add up or they don't, if people don't like those recommendations, we can not move forward with them. We can vote against them and change them. But at the end of the day, we've looked at this material, at least in my opinion, and the Heritage Committee has made comments on it. So for me, I don't know what sending it back to look at it a second time will accomplish.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. I appreciate your perspectives as a member of the Heritage Advisory Committee. My only thought with it was regard to if we're looking for additional comments or to understand the committee's discussions, that it would be more appropriate to bring it to the public planning meeting and add it as part of the report. I mean, typically the report is provides comments from staff, from the region, all these different bodies and stuff. So I'd be more in favor of those comments be included in the next public planning report as opposed to bringing it to council. I'm not sure what the value of bringing it to council is since we're talking about the application at the public planning process.
Councillor Abel, Councillor Humphreys-Gartner. This is to the...
thank you, Mayor Dawn, and I appreciate the comments, and I thank my fellow councillors for them. What we're going to have, and we have to juggle here, is we're going to have a zoning amendment forward. We're also going to have a comprehensive zoning bylaw that's in draft brought forward. And I think it's really important that if we had some comments on the application when we evaluate all this, and on the record. So by not commenting that they're going to take down these 5 buildings, and they're going to put up a 9-story massing right on the street with a setback of just a few yards. By non-commenting, my thought is that there's nothing wrong. When I think that under our official plan and the provincial policy statement and our secondary plan of the Promenade study all speak about maintaining the cultural heritage and character of the street. So by no comment, and they're not provided, my thought is that if there's no comment, everything seems fine with this application. It is very detailed. It shows very clearly what they intend to do. They're going to seek that rezoning so that they can put a 9-story building with very, very minimal setback, which will drastically change the character of that street, was what was once there. So I would hope that the comments coming from our heritage, now that they have an opportunity and they have demonstrated in all the other items that they see, that they would put forward some comments that just minimum saying we would like to see that the streetscape be maintained and not drastically changed, and what we see before us that massing doesn't meet that criteria. And they did the same when the cultural precinct was presented to them back in the fall, when they looked at what was presented by FOTAN at the cultural precinct. They offered comments. So they're always offering comments, but there isn't on this. So I'm only asking that we can go ahead with everything, but at a later date, at the next meeting, they provide comments on these things, basically by going to the Heritage Impact Statement. And by doing so, they can clearly set out and have a discussion and formulate a few comments that can come back so that when we are going forward with it, we don't have to go back and delay it. So it'll actually save time as this application process goes through for United Church to have those comments, which would be quite valuable and what most would consider part of their role. So it's just that next time they have a meeting, provide some comments on that, because that's what was asked at the April 10th. And I see where they were saying, Councillor Tom was saying, well, we were really just commenting about the existing heritage buildings, but the word application and this detailed impact, heritage impact statement of 86 pages warrants at least some comments, which were asked for and are required as we go through. So I'm not asking for anything more than to refer this back to the committee for their comments on a very detailed report for an application going forward. And they have sufficient information, actually a tremendous amount of information here that we could use their comments for. So that's That's why I'm bringing this forward, for nothing else. I don't want to get it complicated. It's actually quite a simple request, and within the realm of the Heritage Advisory Committee.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand Councillor Abel's concerns and wanting that information, but I'm actually kind of reading it in the GC report. I think it's on page, I want to reference page 5 of 8. And there's a general statement where it says staff provided a proposal of the removal of homes, and also comments of the design review panel presented. So basically, overall, there was some concerns about the massing, but they were very supportive of the proposal, and request that any salvageable items of the properties be incorporated into the proposed design. They did ask for that information. They also have a list of other comments below. I think that's, it has some of what I think Councillor Abel is looking for. Maybe he's looking for some more details. But I did want to add, from my perspective, and it's just a small thing, that the committee did bring forth their comments and recommendations to council. On item number 2 on page 6 of 8, item C, it says that residential style architecture be incorporated in the design of the facade and streetscape on Temperance Street. And as the delegate mentioned, let's add Tyler to that. I think that's missing there. I don't know if that needs to be put there, but so I see that there. I see all their comments about any additional archaeological findings on the subject lands be investigated, and that the site plan application be reviewed by the Heritage Committee at a future meeting. So when the full site plan, as the process moves forward, will be presented to Heritage, and they'll come back with a full-fledged, more comments at that point. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I'm reading here, Mr. Mayor. So I don't know if that comment about adding Tyler, if that's just noted for staff, or do I need to make a small little adjustment? We don't need to. I think we've talked about it here.
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Dawi, we're speaking to the amendment right now, but when we're back on the main motion, I think that could be a friendly amendment if all of council would agree.
Councillor Gartner, then I'm going to go to Councillor Maracus and back to Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the comments. I was at the meeting, and we spent a long time on this application, but we mostly discussed listing and delisting the properties. There was a very small discussion on that resulted in number 3, in recommendation number C, and then E. But the discussion was really with respect to listing or delisting. The planner was present, but she didn't give an overview. It was mostly Mr. Bray who was talking about 3 options with what the committee could suggest for the homes. So I do agree with Councillor. I'm very glad to see that we have C and E in here, but I do agree with Councillor Abel in that the focus of the discussion really didn't have anything to do with more than just a superficial discussion of what the committee would like to see there. And I think that's reflected in how the comments are read. So I will agree with the referral.
Councillor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was an observer at the meeting, at the Heritage meeting, and there was, Councillor Garner's correct, that wasn't part of the main discussion, but they did touch on the fact of the style, and it's reflected. I don't know what to say either, because I'm looking at it and it's reflected in the motion where it talks about how they would like to see the architectural style, and You know, and then when you look at the design review panel, Councillor Humphreys is correct. They went into a very detailed suggestion of what they would like to see and what possible changes. But to send it back right now to the Heritage Committee, I mean, quite frankly, what are we sending them back? Because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the original application, I'm hoping that's not the same one coming back. So I'm thinking that it's going to change. So are we going to give the Heritage Committee the application that originally came to us, that basically the applicant is going to be taking all the comments from the design review panel, what they heard from the Heritage Committee, what they've heard from Council of Public Planning, and they're going to make changes to bring back to us? Are they giving the Heritage Committee the changed one before it comes to public planning meeting? Because I don't see any value in the Heritage Committee discussing an application or a site plan, in essence, that really is not going to be what's going to be coming before us. Hopefully, is not coming back before us, because I really don't like an application to come back exactly the same the second time. But I just don't see any value in that going back at this point. I mean, the motion speaks for it. It says that they want the site plan to go back to them when it's ready, and they can look at it, they can discuss it at that time, and they'll give us the feedback, and that's the way we normally do things here. And so I'm not in favor of the referral at this time.
It's actually an amendment.
At the amendment.
Councillor Tom. Second time for you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And yeah, I mean, the report that Councillor Abel referred to was on the agenda for the Heritage Advisory Committee. It was talked about during the discussions. It might not have been the focus of the presentation, because Carl Bray made the presentation mostly with respect to the houses in question, but also a brief history of the United Church as well as other things. But I mean, I guess my point is the committee has provided comment, and they've provided 5 recommendations. We're talking about sending it back for more comments because Councillor Abel doesn't care for the comments that were provided. But I'm pointing to page 6 of 8 on item C5 from our GC agenda, which is the minutes. Top of page 6, it says, the committee expressed concerns regarding the overall massing of the proposed development and requested the facade complement the residential streetscape rather than having a commercial or institutional appearance. The committee expressed support for the proposal and requested that any salvageable items from the properties be incorporated into the proposed design. The top of page 6 of 8 on C5 of our GC agenda, the minutes from the Heritage Advisory Committee. And so that sounds pretty, so I guess my point is, Councillor Thompson mentioned this. If we want to refer the comments or the recommendations or whatever to the public planning meeting or something, that's something totally, I guess that's us anyways, but I mean, at least he gets it on the record at the planning meeting. That's something totally different. But to add an amendment to send this back for more comments, we've provided comments. And so I think if, as a council, it's our job to, look at the comments, look at the minutes, look at the recommendations, and then we make our decision based on that information. The committee makes recommendations, council makes the decision. If the comments aren't up to standard to some councillors, then maybe they should insert their own comments and then vote accordingly. So my point would be, the committee has looked at this. Let's move forward on this item. Thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important and pertinent to point out that we spent half an hour discussing something that the committee was already intending to do. This time that we've wasted here tonight, probably on this specific item, so far could have been avoided with a little bit of collaboration, talking to either the committee chair or the vice chair to find out where the gaps in knowledge happen, because it's clearly in the meeting minutes that there were comments made. It's clearly in the meeting minutes that the committee is asking to look at the site plan on a future date. So, maybe in future a conversation could happen and take place so that we're not trying to duplicate something that's already happening.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Gartner. To the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I come back to one of the very first things that I said, which was in number C, that Councillor Tom is right. There was a discussion about the massing and the design, and that really isn't reflected in the motion. So I wanted to add not only Tyler Street to this, but also...
Okay, well, at this point, we're talking about Councillor Abel's amendment.
Right. So I would be happy if we would, I will make another motion. I would be very happy if we can just include the comments about the design and massing and not have it go back to the committee.
Councillor Abel, last time on the amendment.
So I want to thank Councillor Perry for pointing out that it's good to collaborate, because I did do that. I called Councillor Tom and more or less did say my concerns. Unfortunately, I was not aware. As I said, it's kind of complex. I asked the clerk to clarify. I got minutes in C5. I've got an item with minutes on R6. And so very clearly it says right there that the committee expressed concerns, and I think it's important that I would see this. So thank you, Councillor Tom, for bringing that to my attention now. And I know I can't expect you to read my mind and understand what it is, but I think it does illustrate that it's fairly complex as you move through these things, and one does take the time and the courtesy to make a call to get clarification. And I would normally go to the chair, Councillor Gardner, but the way things have been going, I went for Councillor Tom in this case. So, and you just changed. So when we talked last week, Councillor Tom was the one helping me through. So I see those concerns are brought out, and that would suffice for me. And I'm sorry to have taken the time of council, and I tried to do as much collaboration and research beforehand, but as I say, we're looking at several documents as we go through. So we can vote on it. I probably won't even support it now, because my points are right there.
Linda, calling the vote on the amendment, please. Have we got everybody? By hand, all in favor of the amendment? By hand, all in favor of the amendment? Opposed? The amendment fails. Linda, are you good with that? Okay. Back to the, where are we, Mr. Clerk? Back to the main motion. Councillor Perry, on the main motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the main motion as written. I was anticipating the amendment being made for the addition of Tyler Street onto this, so I could speak against it. So I can either wait until it's made, but I would only point out that for the last 140 years, Tyler Street has not been a residential street at that site. It has been the site of a church. So to be asking for us to now ensure that Tyler Street on that site have a residential facade when a residential facade has never existed on that site on Tyler Street, you know, I don't think that carries forward with the tradition of having a church on that site. The back of the street, I completely understand the committee's recommendation to have it for all the homes fronting on Temperance. That makes perfect sense to me. It has been residential in the past. Moving forward, there should be that transition, but to now ask that the frontage on Tyler also be residential when it hasn't been residential, I'm not sure that that's necessarily following down the historical path that we've had before. So I'm in forward of things as are currently written, and I look forward to a very ferocious debate on that amendment.
Ferocious? Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I was going to add that, and I'd still like to. And I think residential style, I don't think is going to hurt the ask. It's recommendations, considerations, and these comments will come through to planning, and the developer will be able to present their ideas for that. So I'd still like to add Tyler.
Amendment, please.
If anyone else would like to support that. To add Tyler to item C.
Councillor Gartner, seconding that amendment. Can we just make this a friendly amendment?
Friendly. Can we do friendly? It should be friendly.
Okay, the amendment is to add Tyler to item 3C, correct? To the amendment, Councillor Maracas. Just to the amendment, please. Not to massing, not to mass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the amendment, I have no issue whatsoever adding Tyler. Just to point out and be technical, one of the houses is actually on Tyler. So, thank you, Councillor Tom. Two of them. So if you want to be technical, there is residential on Tyler on there. So I don't see any issues, as Councillor Humphreys mentioned. We're just looking at adding this as a recommendation and saying that we'd like the applicant to look into this. So I don't see any issue in adding Tyler. I think it's good for us to do it. So I'll be in support of it.
Councillor Abel, to the amendment.
I would just say the same, exactly. There's two addresses, both houses, so that's residential. So I'm in favor of moving that into the equation. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just, the committee, in evaluating it, went out of their way to add Temperance Street. So, if possible, I wouldn't mind just hearing quickly from either member of the committee whether or not there was any consideration of adding Tyler. Here we're doing it, but why didn't the committee do it is my question, since they already, addressed Temperance. So perhaps there was no conversation about Tyler, perhaps there was, but perhaps Councillor Tom or Councillor Gartner could answer that question, but whether or not there was conversation about adding Tyler Street to Clause C.
Councillor Gartner or Councillor Tom? Councillor Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I actually can't recall why Temperance was the only street included, so I don't know the answer to your question. I guess is the easy answer. I can't recall why we chose Temperance as opposed to both. Off the top of my head, no.
Councillor Gartner, do you recall?
My remembrance and understanding, Mr. Mayor, is that we spent most of our time talking about listing or delisting, and there came a point where comments were made about, which ended up as number C, about the residential style architecture being incorporated in the design and facade, and Temperance was thrown in there. I think the intent, though, would be to add Tyler, and as I said before, I think the intent was also, and it is in the comments, to add the comment about massing.
Councillor Thompson, back to you. Councillor Perry.
Just to reiterate, I have no issue with the two properties that, the property that corners Temperance or the one from the inside, but to hold that whole block to that same standard, I don't think it's appropriate. It doesn't match the history here. So to be dictating that it has to be residential in nature when it hasn't been historically, it just doesn't make sense to me. I do have a question to Mr. Ramuno. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Marco. Is this recommendation binding in any way, or would I just be spinning my wheels ferociously right now to no avail?
Mr. Ramuno.
To you, Mr. Mayor. No, again, one of the recommendations was, and we did commit to bring back the revised plan back to the Heritage Committee for their review and comment with respect to the redevelopment proposal. And when we did have that original Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, it was after a public meeting, and we did indicate to them that the applicants were going to revise their plans in response to the comments that were heard from the public and council with respect to trying to reduce the massing and make some design changes, specifically along the Temperance Street facade. So if the Tyler Street facade was included in that resolution, I don't think it is going to be a big concern, because the applicants are, as we speak, revising their plans and are going to be submitting them to the municipality for review.
Councillor Perry.
So to confirm, this amendment would be binding, or would it not be binding?
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't see that amendment. I guess it's C is really going to be binding. Again, council will be providing their final comments on the redevelopment proposal as it comes forward, specifically related to design and massing.
Councillor Perry?
So to confirm, it is not binding. Just a one-word answer, Marco.
Mr. Nuno?
Thank you.
My opinion, it's not binding.
Councillor Perry?
That's all the time I'm going to waste on this matter then. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gartner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The southwest corner of Tyler and Yonge is commercial, and the next house to the west is at the moment commercial. But going farther in, and it is perhaps not exactly where the church was, but it's where the church-owned properties are. There are some homes there where people have taken a lot of care to respect the heritage of the area, and that's why I would be in favor of adding Tyler to this.
Calling the vote on the amendment, which is to add Tyler. You can see it in bold. Linda? Did it work? Darn. Everybody in? Can you help Councillor Kim? Linda, you got everybody? No? Okay, voting by hand, all in favor of the amendment, please. Hands up. Contrary, it's carried. Thanks, Linda. Back to the main motion for the whatever time. Yes. Councillor Marakis, main motion as amended at this point.
No, I'm okay. Let's just get to a vote. I'll call the question, actually.
Need a second?
Pardon?
I'm sorry? Yep. Second? All in favor of calling the question, please. We'll just do hands at this point. Opposed? That's carried. All in favor of the main motion as amended? Just okay. Linda, I gotta let Linda catch up now. thinking.
Yeah, I think Linda's adding as amended.
It's not me this time. We make an announcement. It's not me this time. Let's make an announcement.
I'd like to advise everybody that. So the clerk is calling a recorded vote.
Just the two motions.
Mr. Clerk, if you could read.
Yeah. Yes, it's the summary of committee recommendations, and that the recommendations within the report be carried as amended, and the amendment is the addition of Tyler Street to 3C.
It should also be pointed out the other items in this report are being approved.
Yeah, and yes, the other items separate of the Heritage Committee recommendations are also being approved. Okay.
Morgan?
Excellent.
Mr. Clerk?
Councillor Abel, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. Councillor Maracas? Councillor Maracas votes yes. Councillor Perry? Councillor Perry votes yes. Councillor Gartner? Councillor Gartner votes yes. Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Mayor Daw votes yes. Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Tom?
Yes.
Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. And Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, as it comes up here.
Thank God.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All righty. That's it. That's all the items. So we go to notices of motion. Please, the first one up is Councilor Maracas. Councilor, Mr. Clerk, he's daydreaming.
I'll move as is.
Thank you. Second, Councilor Humphreys, thank you. Councilor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I get into it, I actually had some conversations with Councillor Perry, and when working on this motion, I also feel that there should be some stronger language put into it, and Councillor Perry has an amendment that he'd like to put in, and I think it's important that we put that he puts that amendment forward before we get into any discussion. So if I don't mind passing it over to Councillor Perry and allowing him to put that amendment forward.
Councilor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Marakis. Councillor Marakis and I have spoken about this many times over the last few months, even prior to the provincial government, making their announcement. Here's the amendment. Be it further resolved that the town of Aurora requests the ability to tax vacant homes in any upcoming legislation that the province introduces, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to all municipalities within the Greater Golden Horseshoe for consideration, and that it be sent to all members of the provincial legislature for consideration. And I will explain it once I have a seconder.
Councillor Marakis is seconding. Councillor Pirie, did you send that perchance to the clerk?
So to clarify, I had submitted a notice of motion as well, but this one was already on the books. So I decided to hold off, but I have submitted the amendment to Linda so that it can be incorporated on the whole. So the reason and the rationale was Action 5 from the announcement said that the provincial government would be introducing legislation that would the item 5 that was released by the province states that they would be introducing legislation that would, if passed, empower the City of Toronto and potentially other interested municipalities to introduce a vacant homes property tax, to encourage property owners to sell unoccupied units or rent them out, to address the concerns about residential units potentially being left vacant by speculators. That clause left some ambiguity. The provincial government does in fact hold a majority, so if I'm a little bit confused about the if passed portion, but the fact that they're highlighting the City of Toronto and anyone else, I think that the town of Aurora needs to be vocal about wanting to be included in the initial phase of this program. So that is the amendment. That's the rationale behind the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Pirie. Councillor Marakis. The amendment's up on the screen now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm full support of the amendment. As I stated, I've talked with Councillor Pirie. When I put forward the motion, it was to I did want to have that strong language, but the thought was let's look at what the provincial government is actually going to allow, and let's have a report come back to us, and then at that time we can decide what options that we have in introducing such a property tax. But I do agree with Councillor Pirie. I think it's important that we get on the ball first and jump in and be strong and vocal and say that we want this. We want this in the town. We will, if you are going to only give it to, maybe for all we know, they're only going to give it to a certain number of municipalities, and I think it's important that we be at the top of the list. So I'm in full support of the motion, obviously, and of the amendment.
Councillor Tom, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Councillor Marakis bringing this forward. I appreciate Councillor Pirie's opinions on this matter as well. I guess my question would be, the way this was written out for us for this meeting was that we were going to get options, or which to me means a report back. So I guess my question would be, when would be the appropriate time to ask, what is a vacant, what is technically a vacant home? Is there a certain amount of months unoccupied? None of that information was provided, and I assumed it would have been in a staff report that we were going to get. So if the members who put this forward could explain that.
Speaking to the amendment. So that's to the main motion. So
because the main motion is asking for options, and then also the amendment's asking to request the ability.
Right, but I got to come back and address that in the.
Okay.
Pirie.
So we'll let Councillor Marakis add on if he'd like, but we don't know what the legislation is going to read as. I have a feeling that the legislation will probably lay out what a vacant house is, but it's just requesting that when they do formulate this piece of legislation, that they're aware that other municipalities, not just the City of Toronto, would like to have that same power. And so that's sort of the different thought processes between the original motion and why I presented this amendment.
Councillor Tom? Councillor Tom?
Thank you for that answer. That's satisfactory, and I mean, it's certainly a direction I'm happy to move forward with, but I think when that information comes back from the province, I'll be happy to look at it then. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson. Oh, I think. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I certainly support the amendment as well as the main motion. My only real comment is, why not add AMO to the list? I mean, they are the advocacy group on a provincial level. They always put it forward their, shall we say, priorities in terms of which to work with regards to the various municipalities. I think that they also have an ear to the province, and so why not add them to the list of people that we're sending the resolution forward to?
Friendly amendment to add AMO. Thank you. If there's no other comments on the amendment, I'll just call the vote on the amendment. Ms. Linda? Everybody in? Linda, we got everybody? Okie dokie. Back to the main motion. Councilor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to state that, we've talked about this, I think, as a council for a long time, to have this ability, and I think I did hear what Councillor Tom mentioned, and Councillor Perry, I think, did an excellent job in defining of how we're going to be moving forward. I just think that we're just looking at, let's ask for the ability to do this, and staff will bring those options for us to look forward on how we can implement it and move forward. And once the legislation has been drawn out and we can look at exactly what the province is going to allow us to do and not allow us to do. But I think it is, like I said, I think it's very important that we take a lead and we jump in on this right away because we have been talking about doing this for a very long time and saying that we need this ability. And now that the province is allowing it, we need to jump in. So I hope everyone else feels the same way, and I hope this passes unanimously.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank you very much for bringing this motion forward. It's really in the forefront of my mind these days. We have been thinking about it for quite some time, and I think this is a great way to protect our town and to make it known that this is very important to us. So I really appreciate the amendment that Councillor Perry brought forward, and the addition of AMO and the rest. So it's a great plan. Looking forward to launching it. Thanks.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of the motion, and I thank Councillor Marcus for bringing it forward. Similar to many economic situations, when there is a pinch in any financial system and the province or any government intervenes, usually before legislation is even passed, just the thought of having this legislation on the table usually starts the ball rolling, and I suspect that most of the speculators will be long gone by the time legislation kicks in, and this will certainly be a positive step forward in the future should another, I don't want to say bubble, but another a tight housing market exists again. So I thank Councillor Marcus and Councillor Perry for his friendly amendment, and I'll be in support.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be in support of the motion with the amendments. I read that the province will be going to the region first tier for comments on the vacant tax. So I was wondering if you...
If I may, that's actually on the retail rebate, the vacant, so it's slightly different from this.
So, well, I still might suggest that we pass I guess when it's a resolution to all municipalities, it would be the first tier as well, so the regions would be picking that up. Okay, fine. That's more or less where I wanted to go with that. And this has been something that was brought to our attention well over a year ago by a real estate, a prominent real estate person who asked to remain unnamed. But she was way ahead of this a while back. Not that she was picking up in Vancouver and our lots here in Aurora. And although I don't think it's going to address the shortage of affordable housing, it will, I think there's some fairly complex sort of things in order here, foreign investment and homes being vacant, and those are the concerns that we are going to address with a vacant home, a vacant tax, or vacant home tax. Anyways, I am in support of moving along with what the province is going to bring forward as an initiative, and I think it's important that the municipalities who want to participate respond.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fully in support of this, and I sincerely hope that it will help our community because, like many communities, we have a problem here. Thank you.
Councillor Gartner. I too support the premise of this, although I do have a concern with the statement, whereas residents, especially young residents, are experiencing difficulty entering the housing market due to lack of affordable homes. I think we have to be very careful in recognizing that a vacant home tax is not necessarily going to fix that issue. The biggest challenge here, and there was actually a pretty good article in the Globe on last Friday, is supply. It's a supply side issue. And there's a substantial difference between, and Councillor Marakis and I are going to disagree on this one, but there is a substantial difference between the provincial government and other organizations like Malone, Gibbon, Parsons, who've done totally different. There is such a disconnect between the two groups in terms of what they define as affordable, or available land, that I think we need some serious information around that. So I very much look forward to what will come out of not only our staff report, but the provincial government. Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you're correct. I will disagree with that statement. While I agree with you that this is not the be-all, end-all, and it's not going to fix all the problems, I do not feel that supply is the problem at all. Some of the prominent scholars have already stated, some from U of T, and I think I believe it's from Guelph, have stated that supply is not the problem. This is actually what's happened is the development community has taken this opportunity to jump on this and state that supply is the problem, so therefore they could ask and push for the provincial government to open up lands that are not currently available to them, sensitive lands, environmentally sensitive lands that they would like to see opened up. There's more than enough supply in the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe for many people to move into.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And while I would love that to help the issue of young people trying to buy homes, and for me, it's also on top of that is our property standards. You know, I don't want to see empty homes and deterioration and proud of ownership. For me, it's very much that, and I'm hoping that this will encourage that type of improvement or maintenance. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Marakis, you and I will have to agree to disagree on this one. Calling the vote on Councillor Marakis' motion, please. As amended, excuse me. Are we all in? Everybody in? That is carried unanimously. Council, we will take our break. 10 minutes, Mr. Clerk? Please. Yeah, well, they could take a while, especially the next one. So we will we'll take our break and come back in 10. Please, back in 10. And we are back. And our next motion is from Councillor Kim. Councillor Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion on the floor, please.
Thank you. Is there a second, please, for Councillor Kim's motion? Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all know that the more information we have, the more informed decisions we make. And often, when we discuss issues here in council, we ask for comparators, we look for comparisons, we look for trends. And a lot of times, trends really help us extrapolate and make informed decisions based on what's happened in the past and where we think that path may go in the future. And so, we've, in our 2.5 years through this term, we've faced a lot of planning issues and issues that have gone to the OMB, and it's become more and more a hot temperature topic. And so I think it's important that we know the breakdown of various issues that have gone to the OMB for an appeal. And originally, when I asked staff on whether, in terms of the time it would take and whether it would be beneficial, and how far-reaching can we make this report? I thought that the province would have a lot of these statistics already in their database, but apparently they don't. And so, as much as I wanted it to be province-wide, staff said that the data is not there for, especially the financials for all of Ontario. But we can certainly find that information for Aurora. And so, I think having and discovering certain characteristics over the last 10, 15 years. I did state 10 years so that I can respect staff's time, and I think 10 years would be sufficient if we have sufficient information to go on. And I think having the characteristics like breaking down the OMB appeals by the number of units being applied for, like less than 3, under 5, to 6 to 10, greater than 10, vacant open lots versus infill, the financial outlays dispensed by the town in having that these appeals go to the OMB. I think a trend will be spotted. But I do know that given the the huge array of appeals cases, they all have like snowflakes. They all have their subjectivity or subjectiveness and uniqueness. So I don't hope to capture or categorize every single appeals in one box or 5 boxes or categories, but I think we can do a decent job of capturing certain characteristics and be able to, indicate some kind of trend in terms of where those decisions are going or where they could go. And, if there are unique cases, we can, look at the timelines of that happened in 2009. What was the environment like back then? So we can, consider those contextual items when we see them. And I think, most importantly, it's important to know what the financial outlays and the costs are, because many of us, whether it be around the table or residents or ratepayers group, it's easy for the municipality to bankroll every appeal. But I think if people realize really how much it costs, 30 seconds, it will, they will do it will help everyone do a deep think and consideration as to the ramifications of their decision. So hence, I just wanted this information out and go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Speakers, please, to Councillor Kim's motion. Councillor Perry.
I would only make a friendly amendment. I think sometimes politicians think in 4-year segments, coinciding with elections. So I would probably feel more comfortable just starting with 2006, because that's when a new term came in. So going 2006 through to today, and I think that would provide us with a more balanced overview. So that would be my friendly amendment, if it's agreeable to everyone. Otherwise, it's a regular amendment.
Councillor Kim?
With me, I mean, that's 11 years, so that adds another year to the timeline. So that's fine with me.
Is that all right with, well, the movement was the seconder who suggested it, so I'm presuming it's all right with him. So if you two are okay with that, then we'll just date that to 2006. You done?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maracus, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand what Councillor Kim is trying to ask for. I just don't think I'm going to be able to support it, just due to the fact that when you go to the OMB website, this information is available to anyone. It's already laid out. The only thing that's missing out of it is the financials. But other than that, it states type of application, the decision that was made, and it's not just for our municipalities. If anyone wants to look at it, it's for all 444 municipalities. And so it's all right there, readily available. So, I just don't see the purpose of duplicating that information or having staff work on this and come back to us basically with what's available for us to look up at this time. So, and I'm also curious to the value of it. I mean, I understand we want to be informed, but I don't see how this information is going to change our decision making when it comes to planning applications. I don't base my decisions based on what the OMB is going to do or how much it's going to cost. At the end of the day, an appeal, if you look back throughout the town of Aurora's history, and if you go back those 10 years, I think there's only one time that actually the municipality actually appealed a judgment. All the other times it's a developer or a builder or a resident appealing a decision, and we're either having to go and spend money to defend the decision that we made as a council to uphold our official plan. So I don't see the value in getting this information. I think if someone needs it, it's there available on the OMB website. They can go look it up if they want to see what the outcomes were, what the decisions were, what was involved, why it was brought forward, the appeal. It's all there. So for those reasons right now, I won't be able to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I didn't know that it already existed. I'd like to be able to have a look at it before I consider this motion. But if it does go forward tonight, I'd like to say to that friendly amendment, the term started in December, so hopefully staff would go from December 6th or 7th or whatever it was in 2010. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Humphreys.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess, and I'll wait for when Councillor Kim maybe answers some of the questions around the table. I'm trying to understand the end result of the report and the benefits or the value, or is this to do with like sort of a risk aversion? Do we see ourselves, once we get these results, to have a checklist and maybe make a decision on future developments that could take us to OMB? I'm trying to understand absolutely good information. I don't mind learning and understanding. I think it'd be beneficial. I haven't looked at all the stats on the OMB website. I'm sure there's lots of information for all the municipalities, and I do agree. It's normally, from what I always hear and see, is it's the towns trying to defend their own their official plan. mostly. But for me, it's I'm trying to understand, like, and I absolutely appreciate statistical information, and that it always gives you an appreciation overall. But I think when it comes to OMB and when it comes to developments, it's a very individual, case-by-case scenario. No two are alike. It comes down to defending the official plan, defending what we believe Aurora should look like and be like, and in our vision to hold to our strategic plan, official plan for our town. So for me, this is good information. I think it's good to know and have. It'd be nice. I'd like to understand from staff how much time they think this is going to take them, because I don't understand at the end of the day what the end value result is. I've been trying to think it through, and I like to hear more around the table, and then from Councillor Kim on what type of maybe a tool this will provide for us in the future. If I can understand that a little bit more, then maybe I'll be all for it. Just want to understand what kind of a tool it is and how it can help us. Because whenever I come back to thinking about developments and OMB, for me, it's very individual, and it's about defending or protecting our town, and everyone, I believe, is quite different. And and I could be wrong here, Councillor Kim, but is the intent to take a look at our official plan and see, based on how many OMB court events we've been to, how much money financially we've spent, and do we need to take a look at that and maybe look at our official plan? Is that sort of the intent? What's the data, and what are we going to do with it, for me? Thanks.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Kim bringing it forward, and I support the intent in that I think it's always good for us to have additional statistics and data to help us make informed decisions. And, we try and do that with a lot of the things we do. That's why in the budget process we keep pushing for KPIs and other, numerical metrics to help us make decisions. However, I did have a chance to speak with them too. I do struggle a little bit with the value of information that would come back to us. It's always been my perception that it's hard to compare one scenario to another. I mean, what might have happened in the Lebovic case versus some of the other ones we've dealt with, I don't always see that correlation. And so, the information that comes back to us, I question how valuable it is to us, because, Councillor Marakis and myself had the opportunity through the OMB reform process that we were going through, that we heard from some people who have been very involved in the OMB, both from the legal side as well as being adjudicators on it, and they talked too about some of the challenges within the OMB is the lack of consistency. It's not like where the law where you set precedent. A lot of times there was some confusion over rulings, and from their perspective they would say, you get two similar cases, be it the City of Oakville or the City of Mississauga, but yet it was subjective in how the decision would come down, because it rests really on the judge that's reviewing the case. And so, those are some of the things that have been highlighted in recent discussions, and that's one of the things that municipalities across this province are advocating for on OMB reform. And so that's the other challenge I have with this motion, is that municipalities as a whole are seeking significant changes to how the OMB operates, how it adjudicates, and the criteria upon which it uses to make decisions. There's even calls for, the removal of committee adjustment decisions from the OMB. And so I guess my one concern would be that, we get staff working on this, but, supposedly the province is due to come forward with their recommendations on the OMB at any time. If the OMB significantly changes the manner in which it deals with these scenarios, for example, they put greater emphasis on the municipal wishes, the official plans, and so forth, then you got to question the statistics even more, because then you're really comparing apples to oranges, because the system itself has changed. And so, perhaps it's more appropriate to wait until see what, if any, recommendations the province makes with regards to OMB reform before, engaging staff to go down this road. Because, like I said, You know, while OMB will still exist, it may be very different in the coming days or months.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers, please. Mr. Rumuno, if I may, could you give us a sense of how long this report might take? What kind of staff time? Or is this Patricia?
I'll say it.
Nice deflection, Mr. Rumuno.
Through you, Mayor Daw. Mr. Romano and I we have been talking, and I would suggest probably about 4 months. It is construction season and a busy time now for the planning department and the legal department. And in my case, I'm not sure how well the records are, so we'd have to sort through all the records to see what information we can come up with. But I'd suggest 4 months.
Thank you. Well, you gotta press your little teeny tiny little button, okay?
No, I think through you, Mr. Mayor, and I think 4 months to get it back to us, but how much staff time is it going to take? Every day for 4 months solid. No, I appreciate that. Is that what you were saying? It would take about 4 months? Sorry, through Mr. Mayor.
Well, let me go to the, settle down, okay? Yes, Mr. Cicero.
Yeah, probably not the full every 7 hours a day, but it would take up a big chunk of time.
The rest of us work 8 hours a day, by the way. Just saying.
7.
Councillor Perry.
I'm just a little bit, couple thoughts. My first one is I'm not sure what the big deal is in getting this information back to us. Councilor Marakis has said that it's already available online other than the financials, but it's going to take 4 months for us to get that information that's already online back in a report that's condensed and takes everything, you know, into account, and all we have to do is add in the financials. I'm not sure how that time frame would work out. Ultimately, you know, if the only thing that isn't readily available is the cost expense that's gone out, I see no harm in having us get that financial figure. If we're talking about reforming the OMB, I think there's no easier way to demonstrate how hurtful the OMB is by demonstrating how much money municipalities have to spend to defend themselves. Ultimately, I think Councillor Kim is just asking for a report back, and if it takes us 4 months, I think that's a completely reasonable time frame, which is what the motion states. But again, all we're doing is asking for the number of units involved, whether they were infill or large-scale open field developments, whether they were low, mid, and high-rise, and the total financial outlay of the municipality. I don't see what the harm is in asking for that information. If the councillor feels that he can get a better picture, a better idea, I don't know what that difficulty is. We're not duplicating efforts that we've done in the past. This is something new. I don't know what the harm is in getting an answer to a question like this and getting additional information brought back to council so that we can make a more, if it helps somebody make a more informed decision moving forward, I think it's beneficial. But I haven't heard any concerns about why we shouldn't be doing this. I've heard, you know, I'm not sure if we should be doing this, but I haven't actually heard any really strong rationale for why we shouldn't be getting more information back about how much money going to the OMB has cost us. So that's my comments. And to Councillor Gartner's point about starting in December 2006, I think that, again, completely fair and rational thing to do. I'm recognizing that I've spoken twice, so I'm thinking if there's anything else I want to add at this point in time. But really, Mr. Mayor and members of council, what we have in front of us, I don't think is an onerous thing that we're asking staff to do, especially if a majority of the work, as Councillor Marakis has indicated, has already been done. if we want to vote on it separately so that we just get the financials and we can send us to go in and go look at the OMB's stuff, we can do that as well. But I think sometimes we overcomplicate things, like I'm doing right now. I'm fully in support of this, so I say we just vote on it and move on to the next motion.
Well, I do have a question, actually. Councillor Kim, how do you feel this will help you? How will this help council make decisions? Because I am not seeing that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think all the concerns or the questions about value is what do you call it, not warranted, or I understand. I can appreciate that perspective. I think it all depends on how you think and your perspective on how you make your decisions. Like for me, whether you call it risk analysis or profit loss or attribution analysis, for me, I do quantify things, and I think when you look at various industries, whether you look at baseball, they look at advanced analytics in terms of each player's value. There's so many statistics, and you think when you look at the high-level view, you really do get the value of the baseball player. When you look at the financial markets, you look at individual securities, people can't explain why Tesla is valued at 2,000 times 5 years forward earnings. Whereas, but then when you group other securities like the Amazons and other companies in the world that for years have been valued at metrics beyond what's the norm, these high-level metrics do help you make a decision. And so, if someone is only going to look at fundamentals, they're only going to look at fundamentals. They're not going to look at the technicals. But we do know that in the investment field, you have to look at various perspectives to make the best choice, because that's where the world's going to. And I think when we look at internet voting and everything seems to be going high tech. And then in certain issues, now we're getting very traditional and very subjective. I don't think I'm extrapolating too much in that illustration. And so I did know that this information is on the OMB site, but because staff are public servants, we are public servants, why should we have 1,000 people go to the site and draw a table, draw a YX curve and do it themselves? Why not our staff do it, illustrate it so that we can all base our decisions on the same information? As Councillor Perry stated, the information is there. I just want staff to mass it together, aggregate it together, and help us to identify certain trends. Because I think about these planning issues, it's because it's become very emotional, it's becoming very territorial and political. I think it's important to have that 50,000-foot view. And I think it's important to have that information that, ding, 250,000 spent on this small issue, 500,000 spent on this. Because when there's real numbers attached to something, it gives people pause. Do I really want to do this? I'm a resident of Aurora. Am I selfish? Am I going to do this for this? And I'm not saying we don't want to spend the money. If we truly believe subjectively that this is worth fighting for, I'm all in. But I think that we need all information, the trench information as well as the high-level view, and that's where I'm coming from. Because in all the meetings I've gone to and the council discussions, and even earlier, the HAC and the United Church planning and all that, it's all about emotions, about history, it's about this. But I think it's important to have just a more objective 50,000-foot view and see if that does offer a different perspective. And those who are traditionalists and say that everything is unique. I would say that things are more similar than one would think when you take it a step back. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Abel, you haven't spoken yet, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And, you know, I think it's valuable information for council to know. And council from term to term could be very different. So say in a year and a half from now, the members here, there could be a turnover. And it would be very advantageous for the new members to capture at a glimpse the kind of resources that are spent, and maybe it'll highlight that this is an area that requires their attention, and to learn about and to seek advice and collaborate when this part of the process of being a councillor comes forward. So if, as thankfully Councillor Marakis pointed out, a lot of this is online under the 444 municipalities. I sort of agree with Councillor Kim that it's a lot for someone to go wading through this. If there's a concise report, and I'm looking at perhaps 6 a year, I'm just guessing, and if they're highlighted and the amount is there, it's just a matter of tagging the amount. There's a lot of detail here, so perhaps a draft surmising the highlights as illustrated might not require the resources that that some of the concerns have been expressed at this table. I'm in favor of moving forward. I am kind of curious to know. I think there's a lot of money spent on legal and planning and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's valuable information. So I'll support it.
Councillors Thompson, Marakis, Humphreys.
Thank you. You know, I would agree that there is some value in helping everyone to understand the cost of the OMB in terms of the planning process. But, you know, my preference would be to start off at a high level, and simply like we did in the past with some of the insurance claims and the reports we got there. You know, 2010, you know, we had 8 OMB issues, 3 were settled, 3 were appealed, and 2 were decided upon. Total cost was X. I mean, to me, that information would be fairly easy to compile. I mean, part of it is through the budgeting process anyways. I mean, there is a line item for legal, and I know in certain years they do allocate certain amounts for OMBs. And then, you know, if you start at a high level like that, then you can make a further decision once that information comes back, whether you want to drill down and get more details out of specific ones. But, you know, to the question of, what's the concern or what's the harm in doing so? Well, you know, I'm trying to also be cognizant of staff and whether this is the best use of their time. I'm quite certain that staff have a full workload, and that to do this means that something else gets pushed aside or postponed. There are items that they have identified even in the beginning of term as their projects for this term that still have yet to come to us. I mean, we continue to bring items forward, we continue to ask staff to do things, and that's our job, and that's their job. But we need to also be mindful that, they're of their workload. And so part of that question is this the best use of their time? And that's the concern.
Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. Is it the best use of their time? And that's what I stated. Is if anyone here at this table feels a need to get information, just like I said, just go to the website. Get that information. Become comfortable with it. Do we need to? Would it help for us to look at some of the financials and just get that number? Yeah, there's no harm in doing that. And as Councillor Thompson pointed out, I think if you just leave it at that, I'm sure we can get something back very quickly, and it just gives us a sense of how much was spent. But at the end of the day, I don't think how much we spent defending our official plan because someone else appealed the decision we made is going to change how we make our decisions. I don't understand how this is going to inform our decision making. If we're going to allow how much money possibly could be spent at the OMB because someone could possibly appeal our decision because we're making a decision to uphold our official plan that in our minds is good planning principles, meets the province's plans, meets our official plan, and we say we're not going to allow it because they're asking for too many amendments, well then the cost of them possibly appealing it shouldn't factor in. It's what's the benefit to our community. So to me, this won't help. For myself, I don't know about anyone else sitting at the table, but it won't help me inform my decision because I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the community moving forward, not what could possibly happen as far as cost and appeal. If someone decides to appeal a decision that we made because it's in the best interest of the community, well, then that's their right as well to do it. But, just beyond that, if this does pass, there is some language within it that I find problematic that, I definitely, if it does pass, I would definitely ask that it be taken out. The one whereas clause where it says, whereas more and more municipalities have disagreed with infill development and intensification project by builders as a result of neighborhood mobilization. I'm not 100% sure what Councillor Kim means by that. Maybe if he can explain to me what exactly he means by that, but to me, it's a bit troubling reading that and leaving that in there.
Question to Councillor Kim? Do you have a quick reply, sir?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason why I put that in is, and I'm indifferent in terms of which whereas we keep and which we take away, is as long as my main intention is for the report to come out. The reason why I put that in is, and I know that Councilor Marcus will not agree with me, just like I actually agree with Mr. Mayor regarding the supply versus speculation regarding housing. It's because one of the in a lot of the objective reports that are out there regarding the reasons for the increase in housing the last several years is that when you have so many municipalities rising up and you can call it fighting or defending certain projects within their borders, it holds up supply. That's essentially what I was getting at. And I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with one side or the other in that debate. I'm just saying that that's one argument that was raised in many housing and research reports that I've read.
Councillor Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, the way I read it is it's saying that the municipalities are when they disagree, they're disagreeing because of, the way I'm looking at it is because of NIMBYism. And I don't think that's correct. As I said, I think that we make our decisions not based on how many people show up here in the council chamber and whether they're cheering or whether they're booing. We're making a decision on what we feel is the best interest of the community. That's, once again, I'm speaking for myself and in my opinion, but to me that the language in that one whereas clause, I think, doesn't agree with me, and I prefer to not see it in the motion.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the discussion and clarification from Councillor Kim. And I'm putting myself in this report that would come back and how I would use the tool, and in my thought process. And Councillor Kim mentioned a little bit, for me, I don't think OMB, when a development comes before us, I think of what the development is going to provide the town. Does it conform to the official plan? Can we deal with the exceptions? Is it going to enhance? Is it going to be, sometimes we have to make some decisions. Densification is always part of it. And then staff makes a recommendation and we decide. At that time, there are times where staff will, warn us of implications of going with the plan and the risks of OMB. And they've done a great job in each of those circumstances to, give us an idea of the outcome and potential monetary, financial risk if we continue in whatever path we're going to lead. So for me, I have to come back to each one is different. They're, maybe not so different. Maybe, we'll find it from a trending perspective. Yeah, you know what, this is the way it looks like. But for me, this tool or this process, And I feel bad because I really appreciate Councillor Kim. You're awesome. You're very, very intelligent. And your stats, and that's probably why I probably wouldn't be able to, I look at the spreadsheets or the report and think, this is really cool, but I don't know how I'm going to apply it to the next development and how I would say, well, I know we spent a lot of money over there and we have to be fiscally responsible, but I do believe, I come back to, I live here and I don't work here. I'd like to work here, but I live here. I love this town, and I look at it as a place to live, and I try to make it, try to keep our town as how we believe it should look at it through the official plan and our strat plan. So for me, it's great information. I can dig a little deeper at the OMB website if I need to. I don't feel that this is for me staff to spend months on this to give us a report. For me, it's probably not going to, personally, I'm sure it'll work for everyone else, but for me, it probably won't make any difference in how I approach making decisions for new developments. So my apologies for that, Councillor Kim, because I respect you very much, but I do think it's probably great for everyone else but me. So thank you.
Excuse me, before I go back to Councillor Kim for his third time, any other speakers on the motion, please? Councillor Kim, last word is yours.
How much time do I have?
I'm sorry?
5 minutes? Okay.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay. I think, because it's my last time, I want to get all the points there. With respect to staff time and how much stuff that we've brought forward to staff, I have to say, how much time have I actually spoken as a percentage of airtime in council? Probably one of the fewest. How many motions have I put forward taxing staff time? Probably one of the fewest. When I put something forward, I like to think that it's of value. And I respect that if other people don't value it as much as I do, that's fine. But I think if I, or at least 2 other councillors, believe that this is important, then I think it's worth exploring this. Again, if I had put out 50 motions this year, I'd say, maybe this is not so important. But I don't think this is that much. In terms of official plan, I agree with Councillor Marakis that we spend time and energy on an official plan. I expect builders to adhere to them. I completely agree with that. But we know that that's not the case. How many builders have we come across where they want an amendment to our zone, amendment to our OP, or OPA, amendments that we did, or these previous? So we know that OPs are going to be, they're going to go over the boundary line with that. And we've gone to the OMB, we fight that, we've lost some, and we may have won a couple, or some. So in terms of defending OP, does that mean that we defend the OP at all costs for principle's sake? No, we're fiduciaries. We talk about pecuniary interests, fiduciaries. So why doesn't people have the right to know how much we've spent on the OMB? If anything at all, if we put out on our website, and we've all approved all the real estate transactions over the last 10 years, can we not at least put out, we spent this much on this issue and on that issue? On OMB reform, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that there's OMB reform process going on right now. I believe in OMB reform, and I hope that there is a complete overhaul of the OMB, or at least a significant amount of it in terms of the process. But being a pragmatist, I think it's going to be a little bit of tinkering, but I don't think it's going to be significant. And given the election next year, are they really going to come out with something this year? We don't know when that OMB reform response is going to come back to us. And so how long do we hold this up? A year? 2 years? Yeah, in terms of the response about that whereas, I got enough whereases in there that I can take that out. It's not that big a deal. But in terms of NIMBYism, I think it fits. We talk about radio towers, we talk about developments, infills here and there. Of course it's NIMBYism. What else is it? So I think, again, just to conclude, everyone has a different way of thinking. I process information this way. Do I want to fight for residents out of principle for every single planning issue? Of course I do. I want to defend everybody because we're all Aurorans. But we do know what's realistic and what's not. A lot of times we probably know what the outcome is going to be, but we go through with it anyway, hoping that there's that 5% chance. And as much as many of us don't want to put a number to it, I think, for me, in my mind, automatically I put a number to something. That guides my decision. I think that's a value to me and hopefully a couple of others. But in the end, I think a report, and what I'm asking is not much different what Councillor Thompson suggested. This is not going to be a deep dive into all minuscule characteristics of each situation. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll be respectful of whatever happens. It's not going to hurt my feelings.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Kim speaks last. I'm sorry. Okay.
How?
1, 2, and 3. We'll call them separately. Linda, we're going to call them separately. What are you trying to pull out, Councillor Thompson? But if you want the money, do you want the money? Okay. Linda, we're getting there? Okay, the first clause. And this is as amended. Pardon me? The amendments in the last clause. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. So from December the 1st, 2006. Do you want to put that in now, Linda? Yeah, we'll crash the system. Tell you what, Linda, why don't we just vote on that, and Michael will take a note and make sure it's done. Okay? So if everybody could vote on this, please. Online? Yep, online. Vote again? Is everybody in?
Still the first one, they just updated.
Item 1 is carried. Item 2. It fails. Councillor, Clause 2 fails, pardon me. Clause 3. Clause 3 is still in order because Clause 1 carried. Clause 3 carries. Thank you. Last motion. Councillors Maracus and Tom. I presume moved by one and seconded by the other?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Councillor Maracus seconding it? Presumably. Councillor Tom?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty straightforward motion. Councillor Maracus actually discussed this with me, and we brought it together jointly, as we're both, and I'm sure all of council is interested in heritage preservation and commemoration, really. And so, I'm happy to support this along with Councillor Maracus, and I look forward to council support. And I would actually just go to Councillor Maracus. Well, you can go to Councillor Maracus as the chair for any comments as well, because I think this was really mostly his initiative.
Councillor Maracus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Councillor Tom. Just looking at it, we sat down, we talked about it, and I think it's a great thing to move forward because in Canada's as it being Canada's 150th, it's a great way to celebrate the 150th birthday of Canada while also promoting and celebrating our town heritage at the same time. And so I think it's an excellent way to combine the both and utilize the fact that it is Canada's 150. So I'm looking forward to identifying those properties that have been constructed in 1867. Just through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, I know we've talked about, maybe if you can just give a sense to council, because I'm sure it might just come up as a question, is roughly how many properties do we have? I know you and I have had some estimates, but I know you're going to be looking into it. That's why we left the motion open-ended as that way for you to identify them. But if you can give everyone a sense of that number.
Mr. Ramuno?
Certainly through you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have at least 20 homes that were built before 1867, so we'll be able to verify the number and advise council of the actual number. At least 20.
Thank you. Councillor Maracus?
Thank you. And so, we already have a commemorative plaque that we give out. Just to calm maybe some fears of maybe when some people read this, is that if you do get awarded this or you get presented this commemorative plaque, it does not mean that your house or your property would be designated or listed. You're just getting a commemorative plaque celebrating the fact that your property was constructed 150 years ago on Canada's 150th birthday. So that's all we're doing here.
Councillor Thompson?
That was my question. How many buildings do we think there was? So I'm good, thanks.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. So, Councillor Maracus, you said this says in 1867. I think, Mr. Muno, you said in or before 1867. So are we going for just the 1867 or before? And I think it's really a great way to use the Heritage Reserve Fund. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other speakers? We'll call the vote then. Linda, if you'd open the vote, please. We all in? Who are we missing? That carries. Thank you. That takes care of motions. There is no regional report. New business, Councillor. I think Maracas, it's my turn to start with you. New business. Thank you. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't here last week, but I was very pleased to hear the discussion around council about, with respect to how to treat the Emerald ash borer and not to use Imajet. And I know from what Mr. Downey said in the past and from the research, there may only be a very small chance that the neonics are hurting our bee population, but you know, bees fertilize our crops, and we need those crops. So I was very pleased, and I was also satisfied to know that that my my view about the neonics was accepted by council.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to congratulate the Aurora Winter Blues Festival. I attended a check presentation today at Blue Door Shelter. It's just north of us here, but they provide for a shelter for the region. They provide 100 beds for young men between 16 and 26 and for families, and put people back on the road while providing shelter. And they donated and presented a check for $8,000. They're no strangers to the Blue Door Shelter. It's the 5th year they've donated, and for a total of $40,000. And I think it's just outstanding what the Aurora Winter Blues Festival does. In addition, they also presented last week to Chats. And so I think the recognition is well deserved. And the president, Jamie McDonald, was also recognized at Character Community Awards last week. So congratulations on that accomplishment as well. So,
thank you. Councillor Humphreys, new business. Councillor Tom, Councillor Kim, Councillor Perry. Councillor Perry, any, I'm sorry, Councillor Kim, did I rush by you on new business? Okay. Well, at least I came back. Councillor Perry, any PSAs? Councillor Kim. Councillor Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Dow. I have one. Just wanted to mention that the Devons Drive Public Schools 5th Annual Spring Fair is on Tuesday, May 23rd from 5 to 8 p.m. The Spring Fair will feature jumping castles, a jumbo slide, obstacle course, a DJ, a charity bake sale, games, raffles, and a magic show. And the barbecue that will be provided, or the barbecue that will be there, will be the Aurora Optimists. I believe that will be running that. And so again, that's the Devons Drive Public Schools 5th Annual Spring Fair, and that's going to be on Tuesday, May 23rd from 5 to 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, PSAs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder that the Aurora Farmers Market and Artisan Fair is back on. It's at our town park, Saturday mornings 8 till 1 p.m. It was a cold opening day and a rainy opening day this past Saturday, but it was still great fun and great times, and I'm sure this Saturday will be a lot nicer for everyone to enjoy, so I hope to see you out there.
Thank you. Councillor Abel. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 2017 Character Community Awards, Councillor Abel mentioned it, but also I just wanted to mention that there was actually 3 recipients from the town of Aurora. So I just wanted to make mention. So under the award Character Community Collaboration, Jason Scott from the town of Aurora was the recipient for that award. And then for the Character Community Innovator, Ron Weiss was the recipient of that award. And we have one more award. let me just find it here. And for the character community colleague is Sergeant Anthony Torson, badge number 651. And so I just wanted to make mention that Aurora was well represented at the Character Community Awards, and I want to thank everyone that did put in nominations and congratulate those recipients and for the excellent volunteer work that they do for our community.
Councillor Humphries.
And thank you, Councillor Marks. Through Ms. Rare, I should have mentioned, of course, and another Aurora citizen, Heather Hamilton, won for a character award for volunteerism that evening as well. I was there and really enjoyed the event. It was beautifully put on, and I was proud that she won for her volunteerism. And one of the things that she's doing is she's been coach for Aurora Newmarket Special Olympic Bocce. Just one of the things that she does. So I was very proud for her as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just do a couple, given the hour. Councillor Perry.
Sorry, it was probably done last week. I haven't checked the tape, but I did want to thank all of the committee who took part in Aurora's EcoFest, second annual this past year. It was a great job. I wanted to thank as well all members of council who came by, stopped by, said hello, attended the event. Your support was greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. There is an emergency preparedness fair this coming Friday, 10 a.m. at the York Region Administration Center. Town Summer Camp Information Session, right, this Saturday at the SARC, Aurora.ca camp programs. Blood donor clinic, at Our Lady of Grace Catholic Church on Yonge Street. That is on Monday, May the 15th. Doors Open is looking for people to sign up. We would prefer an email by Wednesday, May the 31st for people to do that. That's always a pretty good show. We're still seeking applications for the John West Memorial Scholarship, and those are valued at $1,000, and the deadline is Thursday, June the 1st. So that's coming up sooner than we think. And I think that, well, unless you're next teen idol, which apparently I'm not, strangely enough. Aurora.ca Teen Idol, that's always a pretty fun show too at Canada Day. Councillor Tom.
If I may. Thank you, Mayor. I just remembered this, and I wanted to say something. I wasn't sure if you were going to mention it. But I think we should just acknowledge as a council, and I think we all would agree, that the contributions to our town of Dave Franklin, and Dave passed away recently. He was the past president of the Royal Canadian Legion. And I just wanted to acknowledge that obviously the town and our council sends condolences to his family. I know there was a number of councillors and the mayor at his funeral service, and just a great Aurora citizen who contributed a lot to our community, and we send our best to his family.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tom. We will move to bylaws. We have two. Someone would move those, please. Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Perry. Comments or questions on the bylaws? All in favor? Oh, we're going electronic? Uh-oh. We could do that by hand. All in favor of the bylaws? Opposed? That's unanimous, Linda. Fill it in later, okay? We have no closed session. Confirming bylaw, please. Councillor Perry, Councillor Tom, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, Linda. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphries, all in favor? Definitely unanimous. Thank you very much, staff. Thanks, Al. So what's the pillow about? What's the pillow about? Oh, it's for my leg. Wow. So, is it the sorest is my hamstring. Oh, yeah. So you just go